The grain offering was presented by Aaron, who took a handful of it. He slaughtered the ox and the ram as peace offerings for the people. Aaron's sons brought him the blood, which he splashed against all sides of the altar. The fat covering the entrails, the tail fat, the fat of the kidneys, and the fat around the liver were offered as a peace offering. The fat on the breasts was made to go up in smoke. The breast and right thigh were presented as a wave offering. After this, Aaron raised his hands toward the people and blessed them. Once he had descended the ramp of the altar, he and Moses entered the tabernacle. When they came out, they blessed the people. At this point, the glory of Adonai appeared to all the people. Leviticus 9:17 through 23. David and the army of 30,000 troops went to Judah to bring the Ark of the Testimony to Jerusalem. After taking it from the house of Abinadab on the hill, they put the ark on a new cart driven by Uzzah, the son of Abinadab. His brother Achio walked in front of the ark. David and the whole house of Israel celebrated in the presence of Adonai with all kinds of musical instruments made of cypress wood, including lyres, lutes, tambourines, rattles, and cymbals. Upon reaching Nachon's threshing floor, the oxen stumbled and Uzzah put out his hand to steady the ark. This resulted in Uzzah being struck down for touching the ark. This death upset David and made him fearful. The king asked, "How can the ark of Adonai come to me?" David took it over to the house of Obed Edom the Gittite, where it stayed for 3 months. During these 3 months, Obed Edom and all his household were blessed. The place where Uzzah died was called Perez Uzzah. David took the ark from the house of Obed Edom into the city of David. He had 4 Levites carry the ark to the tent that he had pitched outside of Jerusalem. When they had gone only 6 paces, David slaughtered an ox and a fattened sheep. David, while wearing a linen ephod, danced and spun around with abandon before Adonai. David and the elders brought up the ark with shouting and the sound of the shofar. As the ark of Adonai entered the city of David, Michal, David's wife and daughter of Saul, watched King David worship from her window. They brought the ark in and put it in the place inside the tent that David had set up for it. David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Adonai. When David had finished offering the burnt offering and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of Adonai Tzevaot. Then he distributed to all the people of Israel, to everyone there, both men and women, a loaf of bread, a portion of meat, and a raisin cake, after which the people all left for their homes. Amid his celebration of the ark's presence being there, Michal rebuked David for not acting as dignified as a king should. She was used to how dignified her father had become during worship, where he never acted like this in her lifetime. As such, she believed that a king should never worship without care or freely. This rebuke resulted in her being barren for the rest of her life. Between 1003 and 1000 BC, David spoke to Nathan, who was one of the prophets and one of his trusted advisors. The king did not feel right about how the Ark of the Testimony being a tent while he was living in a palace. Nathan initially said to David that he should do what he desired to do. Later that night, the prophet was reprimanded by a divine dream for encouraging such. The following morning, the prophet delivered a message to the king. The message was essentially, the Eternal One had never asked about a cedar wood house to be built for his presence. He recalled how he took David from the sheepyards and made him chief over Israel, destroying all his enemies so that he could rule in peace. Furthermore, amid his great reputation and desiring to plant his people Israel in their own place without being disturbed ever again by the wicked, however, the Eternal One agreed to allow David to plan for a cedar wood house to be built. However, he would not be the one to build the house. Instead, a son would build it. The son would be like a son to him himself. As such, the son would retain grace even when he would need to be reproved. Moreover, David would be granted an eternal dynasty. 2 Samuel 6, 1 through 7:17. But there was a man named Hananiah who, with his wife Sefira, stole some property, and with his wife's knowledge withheld some of the proceeds for himself, although he did bring the rest to the emissaries. Then Kepha said, "Why has the adversary so filled your heart that you lie to the royal Kodesh and keep back some of the money you received from the land? Before you sold it, the property was yours, and after you sold it, the money was yours to use as you pleased. So what made you decide to do such a thing? You have lied not to human beings, but to Adonai." On hearing these words, Hananiah fell down dead, and everyone who heard about it was terrified. The young men got up, wrapped his body in a shroud, carried him out, and buried him. Some 3 hours later, his wife came in, unaware of what had happened. Kepha challenged her, "Tell me, is it true that you sold the land for such and such a price?" "Yes," she answered, "that is what we were paid for it." But Kepha came back at her, "Then why did you people plot to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the men who buried your husband are at the door. They will carry you out too." Instantly she collapsed at his feet and died. The young men entered, found her there dead, carried her out, and buried her beside her husband. As a result of this, great fear came over the whole Messianic community, and indeed over everyone who heard about it. Acts 5, 1 through 11.